orthopedics resident from Italy.
I am Dr. OZM Dostogir, consultant spine surgery from Bangladesh.
I am Dr. Shrejat MB. I'm an orthopedic faculty at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi.
Welcome to the Expert Insight series, where we interview worldwide expert spine surgeons. In this interview, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Daniel Sciubba, an international leader in neurosurgery with a particular interest in spine tumors and spinal deformities.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Sciubba serves as Chair and Professor of Neurosurgery, Senior Vice President of Neurosurgery, and Co-Director of the Institute Neurology and Neurosurgery at Northwell Health, Newark, United States of America. He is part of EOSPine North America Research Committee and member of the EOSPine Knowledge from Tumor. You will be happy to know he is recognized as one of the top 5 spine surgeons and spine oncology clinicians in the world by Expertscape and was inducted into the Miller-Colson Academy of Clinical Excellence in 2015 at Johns Hopkins University.
Dr. Sciubba is an expert in complex spinal conditions, from rare tumors to deformities to degenerative diseases. His research is focused on expanding treatment options by customizing plans and developing innovative surgical techniques and tools. His many publications, along with his textbook on spinal tumor surgery, stands as a reference in his field.
So welcome, Dr. Sciubba. Thank you for accepting our invitation. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and this is quite an honor to meet with you and to be able to have an opportunity to share some experiences with all my colleagues across the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The honor is also ours. So let's start our interview. Before beginning, could you tell us your full name, specialty, and full current position?
Yes, my name is Daniel Sciubba, and I am a neurosurgeon by training, but I've gone through a couple fellowships, both in neurosurgery, oncology, and orthopedics. And so I focus on complex spine surgery, mainly in tumors and spinal deformity, but also can field any spinal issue. My role, I was at Johns Hopkins for about 20 years, and then I took over the chair position of neurosurgery at Northwell Health, which is one of the largest academic programs in our country. So that was a exciting new change for me, but I still see patients and operate multiple times a week. So it's a nice opportunity that I have now to help lead.
Oh, that's very good to know.
Dr. Sciubba, could you share a bit about your roots? What's your hometown?
Yeah, so I grew up in a state, United States called New Jersey, which is actually near New York City. And I went to college in the United States and then medical school. And then I did my residency at Johns Hopkins, where I became a faculty after doing that residency and multiple fellowships. I became a faculty there for quite some time. And then I, as I just alluded to, became, after about 15 years of being at Johns Hopkins, I moved to New York and helped run a big system.
We are looking great, Dr. Sciubba. We are very excited to know about you, how you trained up and where did you and how you complete your residency. We are very excited to know about your journey of residency to become a spine surgeon.
Yes, thank you for that. So for me, I think I wanted to be a surgeon when I was in medical school, and the brain was very fascinating. And I went to neurosurgery, probably more because of that and brain tumors. And I realized that cancer treatment was so valuable to me and to patients. I just thought taking care of people with cancer was huge. When I was exposed to spine surgery as a resident, neurosurgery resident, I realized that spine surgery and spine tumors had an extra level of complexity. In other words, brain tumors, you would just remove the mass and be careful. In spine, you would remove the mass, be careful, and then you'd have to re-engineer the patient's spine. So actually it was an added element of building, repairing, engineering that I absolutely love. So it was a combination throughout my training where I saw very good surgeons who were cancer surgeons, who were neurosurgeons, but also who were carpenters or engineers who could put the spine back together such that that machine could work for years to come. So I quickly became very, very fascinated with spine surgery, complex spine surgery at that point.
Oh,
Great.
that's amazing.
That's great.
So I don't know if I think you told us a bit of the pros of being an oncologic spine surgeon. Could you share a bit what you think are also some other pros and also the cons of being a spine surgeon, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the pros are that you really are affecting someone and who they are. In other words, not to belittle any other fields, but if I have a lesion on my liver right now, I might not know it. If I have a lesion in my spinal column, I know it. I know it with every movement I make, every breath I take. Maybe I can't move as a result. So it becomes extremely compelling for the patients. The negative is probably the same thing. It's that this is high stakes. This is very, very important stuff where you can't not help the patient in an impactful way and hope that things get better. In other words, a fracture, tumor, deformity, these are things that patients complain of. And so the stakes are high. You have to really help them through this. So for people who like to take on challenges, and I know all doctors and all surgeons take on challenges, but the ones who really thrive on taking care of big problems, complex spine and cancer spine of the spine are, I think, as big as it gets in terms of affecting someone's life, their amount of life they live, and also their quality of life. And whatever we do can impact them for years and years to come. So our approaches, our strategies have to be well thought out. And if we don't do a great job, we got to be quick to assess those opportunities to improve. We can't just say the job is done. I removed your gallbladder and you don't have a gallbladder anymore. This is something where these patients are using the spine every day, and we have to be aware of those opportunities to help them every day.
Oh, great insights. Great insight.
Yeah.
Thinking about your professional journey, who inspired you the most to become the surgeon you are now, and why?
So I was very fortunate. And I think this was part of it when I told my story about seeing great cases, great big complex spine cases. And partly it was probably because I saw a master surgeon do that. And that was my mentor, Zia Gokaslin, who was at Hopkins for years. And what was great about Zia is that he was a great surgeon. So he just, if you watched him, you were impressed. But he had great character as well. So he's just a wonderful person. Beyond that, he's a great leader. So he is able to take on challenges, and you feel like if you're with him or you're part of that situation, you can conquer things. And I think that he bestowed on me probably some of my early leadership goals, which is you've got to learn how to work through problems to get to the other side and be optimistic. And then the last thing I'd say is he's an innovator. So all those things combined, I've tried to emulate. I've tried to be like him early on. And as he's much, he's a little bit older than me, but as we've all both gotten older, we actually reflect on the times that I learned from him, and we actually continue to communicate about that as he continues to show me what a leader looks like.
Great.
Great. Dr. Sciubba, every professional has that one memorable case. Could you please share a bit about your most exciting case and what are the lessons you have learned?
Thank you for that question. I think that for me, the probably the case that got me most excited and still gets me most excited is anytime we do an en bloc spondylectomy in the mobile spine, or even a sacrectomy or internal hemipelvectomy for that matter. And the reason is because you've seen one and you've seen one. In other words, this is not like replacing a knee or taking a brain tumor out in one of the lobes where it's pretty straightforward. These en bloc spondylectomies require you to understand the anatomy to a very high level. to plan a strategy. And then even if you think you understand the anatomy and have a great strategy, you actually have to pull it off. You have to technically be able to do something that doesn't paralyze the patient, doesn't injure a great vessel, doesn't leave the patient with a deficit in their soft tissues that doesn't heal. And so when done well, it actually leaves the patient whole and potentially cures them. So the stakes are high, as I said before, and the rewards are potentially very high. So these are the things where I sit there and I look at them. And of course, at the end of them, they're also longer cases and challenging. And I do these quite regularly now. But I think the first time I saw this, I thought it was magical, where you could take a tumor out in one piece with negative margins and somehow have left the spinal cord and the aorta and the lungs and the vessels intact, and the patient was potentially cured. So this is still something that I think is one of the most amazing things I see.
Great.
Yeah, so a very high impact surgery.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. So moving on, you are currently a very valuable member of AO Spine. Do you think it is important for a spine surgeon to be part of an academic community like this? And in which way AO Spine have influenced your career?
So yeah, I think there's two parts to that question. Being part of an academic community is important for people who like to be academic, if they like to learn, if they like to teach, which I think is most people. This just formalizes it. But there's a lot of academic communities that one can join, either regionally in their own medical center or internationally, and anything in between. For me, the reason I like AO Spine is because I fully respect the peer group that I have. In other words, the people that I've shared time with, I think they strive for excellence, and I think they have great character. And so the brand of people in AO basically are excellent surgeon leaders and excellent people. And so this becomes a great culture to be part of, because not only are you learning and challenging yourself, but you're learning with people that you trust, which allows you to be vulnerable, allows you to ask questions you might not know the answer to, and allows you to ask people if you've had a challenge or mistake, can I get help from you? And so this type of learning is extremely valuable and extremely sought after. So I'm very grateful for the friends and colleagues that I've had in AO over the years.
We totally agree with that. AO has contributed a lot for the young surgeons as well as for the seasoned ones. So moving on to the next question, you are a worldwide recognized researcher and educational leader in spine surgery. To what extent do you think it is important for a spine surgeon to also do a research?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think teaching and research are often two different aspects of the same organism. And what I mean by that is all teachers who really spend a lot of time teaching, they need to know their stuff because they have to teach it. And so anyone who teaches actually ends up learning in the process, because no one starts teaching when they're all knowing. They start teaching when they know something. And as they teach, they say, I actually don't know the answer to that when the student asks, or I don't know why we teach that. Maybe we should change that. So by the very aspect of teaching, we're learning ourselves. So it becomes this cycle where we're not only helping others, but we're helping ourselves. Now, when the questions are not answerable, when I can't answer the student or I can't answer myself, why do we do that? Then we look to research, because research answers the questions that no one knows the answer to. So if we are challenging ourselves and our students about how we should do things better, research is the opportunity to do that. It just becomes a formal way of doing that. And so doing teaching and research together, I'd like to put out there that they're really kind of part of the same thing. They're just formalized a little differently, but really it's about asking and answering questions.
Great insight. Great insight.
Yeah.
Great. So I am now asking you a very important question for us. Give me a elaborating time. That is, what do you think is the best way to approach a fellowship for young surgeons from all over the world? I make it easy. That is, from the third country like Bangladesh, Asia Pacific region, or Australia, or many other region, whoever comes to do observership or fellowship in USA for short duration, like 1 month, 3 months, they are not allowed to scrub. I have one question that if physician assistant or physician assistant can scrub in the OT, and there is a many rules in your healthcare regulation, then outside people cannot scrub. So as a leader, as you are contributing most in the world as a part of your humanity, you are contributing lot for spine surgery. Do you have any thinking about our fellowship young for a fellowship young spine surgeon when they come to USA or any other country, they can scrub, or can you make any regulation, or you are take any part in contribution to change the situation, or what are you thinking about how we can develop in fellowship, because only observership as a 1 month or 3 month, is it sufficient for us to make us a young spine surgeon or beginner? What is your thinking, or what are you thinking in for future?
I think it's a very challenging question, but I'll do my best to give you some thoughts on it. First and foremost, the nature of your question is, as you alluded to, there's a huge range. So there's
Yes.
people who are thinking about doing fellowships who live in New York City, and they're thinking about doing a fellowship in New York City. It's not that much of a stretch. It's not that much of a challenge. They already live there. There's other people who are thinking about leaving their family and going across to another country where they might not speak the language as well, and they have to leave things behind, and they have to sacrifice quite a big deal. So between those two is this a significant range of different people. And we strive to give as much experience to the fellows, whether it be observing, whether it be talking, whether it be operating, whether it be touching the instruments. But I would tell beyond the many, many different ways this can happen, I think probably the most important thing I would share with the people today is that mentorship and that relationship building is something that will give dividends, that will pay returns for years to come. So let me give you an example. If I create a great relationship with a younger surgeon and that lasts for 20 years, that fellowship, that relationship goes beyond a week, it goes beyond a year, it goes forever. And that person 10 years after we met is different. I'm different. So even that short time they spent with us is not going to teach them everything because we are all moving. So what I always say is people should think, and fellows should think about establishing relationships with people they believe to be good mentors who will be mentors for years to come. Now, they might not know who those mentors are. They have to do a little work on that. And the second thing I would say is that mentorship is a two-way street, meaning that the mentors have to want to be mentors, and the mentees have to want to put in that time, whether it's on the phone, whether it's conversations, whether it's visits, whether it's operating or planning for cases. And so that's why when fellows think about who they want to mentor with, they have to understand they have to bring something, they have to bring energy and engagement so the mentor is excited. But the mentor also has to be someone who has a history of mentoring people. If it's just someone who's famous who doesn't like to mentor people, it won't be a long-standing relationship. It really carries more weight when that person wants to teach that person and have a relationship for years to come. So when fellows think about it, they might think this city or this place or this famous surgeon, but I would add in there that they should think about who has a history of mentoring young people well. That's probably the most important.
Yeah,
Great.
that's great advice. Thank you.
But I didn't get the answer that
Okay.
I want to the answer that what is you thinking for our future spine coming younger brothers or sisters when they are coming to USA or other country, they can scrub. Do you or learn something? Do you specific thinking regarding this as you are a leader of spine surgery?
Yeah, I think that, surgery is a contact sport, so that, getting in the operating room is necessary. I do think that once you get to a fellowship level, the need to take a million repetitions is not as important as the mental aspect. So when you're first in training and you have to know how to sew and drill and use different instruments and be careful, that's important. Once you get to a fellowship level, the ability to see an operation, even part of the operation that's interesting, is probably more important than exposing and closing, which is, if I could do it, I would in many ways take that out of my surgery so I could just work on the stuff that I like to work on. But the fact of the matter is, as fellows come about, they don't need to spend every day opening and closing. They can spend shorter amounts of time in the operating room at key points. And they can also end up, whether it's with cameras or with virtual or touching the patient, there's multiple ways to learn. I think the old way of, at least the way I teach fellows now, is if they're getting to me and it's the first time they've ever held an instrument in a certain way, it was a mistake. They should not have gotten to this level. We should have given them more repetitions earlier. But when they got to the fellowship level, it's more about when, how, finer points, when to do this, how do we make this a little easier? And I think that doesn't have to be a full year of scrubbing. It can be something shorter. It can be something where they don't have to feel like they have to operate every day for a year. They can do it much more focused. I don't know if that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And talking about research, would you mind sharing with us one or two landmark papers from your publications that you think changed your practice?
Yeah, thinking about landmark papers, and I have to admit, I don't want to avoid the question, but I always think my most favorite paper is the one we're working on now, is the one that we're changing behavior now, because the ones we did years ago did change behavior years ago, and that's now old. We don't ride horses anymore, by and large. So, the papers I wrote about a saddle or about a horse are not as relevant in the area now. But that being said, I think two of those papers that I'm coming to mind are ones that I think the story still is not finished. And so, for example, one paper where I worked with a number of collaborators on detecting circulating DNA for primary spine tumors shows that we probably are going to find blood tests. We've already done this, and we're going to do this more and more to find blood tests that detect microscopic primary tumors. So if we take out a chordoma and the images look good, and we pat ourselves on the back and we say we did it great, and we take 1 million MRIs or X-rays or CT scans, in the future that may come down to a blood test, and it may come down to a saliva test at some point. And we've shown papers with this, with one of our papers on detecting circulating DNA that was in one of our top journals. So I think that is, expect more of that to come. That's why I think it's still exciting, because that paper came out and it's just beginning to show that we probably are going to get away from taking 1 million MRI scans and getting to blood tests about presence of tumor. The second paper is probably a paper that we did not too long ago from AO, where we looked at mobile spine chordomas, and I personally contributed a number of patients to this study with the AO spine, where we looked at 166 chordomas in our Knowledge Forum tumor database. And we have another paper coming out soon on a similar follow-up, but even just a single center, which I was a large contributor to. And what we're finding is that despite all the great aspects of high-dose radiation, that removing a tumor with negative margins for certain tumors that don't have great chemo, like chordomas and chondrosarcomas, it is still the best treatment. And those data were shown in that paper, and they're going to be shown in another paper coming out. And the reason I feel this is important is, one, this is what I do. I spend so much energy and time on these challenging operations. And since they're so challenging, people have said, how about we just do subtotal resections, radiate the rest? And it breaks my heart, because currently in my new role, I probably see about 50% of patients who had one of these operations where they were radiated and or had a small subtotal resection, and they're recurring very quickly. And they come to see me and I say, I wish we'd had done I wish I was involved earlier and we could have done a gross total reset, an en bloc, because now it's going to be very, very hard. And so I still think that has to be out in the literature, and we're getting more and more of that, because we don't want to make people go through big surgeries, but sometimes those big surgeries in the hands of people who can do it well is still the best for the patient. And I feel that has to be said, versus doing smaller operations that get patients a shorter operation, but they're stuck with many operations or many levels of radiation. So those two papers, both the detecting tumors via blood and also still seeing that en blocs are still the treatment of choice, are two landmark papers that still mean a lot to me.
Sure, thank you. They for sure carry a most valuable lesson from both of them, for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Great
for
word of
sharing that.
wisdom. So, Dr. Sciubba, you're an innovation supporter. So, what's the importance of developing new technologies and how to incorporate them into your daily practice? So, can you just enumerate about some innovations which you have seen in your spine surgery field?
So I think that, technology is very important, but I would say what's more important than technology itself is creativity to innovate. So, and the reason I say this is because when I was young, the VCR came out where you could watch movies that were recorded before, and there was a company called Blockbuster Video, which was present on every mall, every storefront had a video, and that place went bankrupt. Why? Because DVDs came out. And then Amazon, which is a famous company, came out with selling books online and DVDs. Um, and then they don't sell DVDs much anymore. Now Amazon sells everything, but now it's streaming. So the point of the matter is the technology is not as important as the need to keep innovating, the need to keep having creativity. And so when we think about creativity, it is challenging. That means we have to ask ourselves, if not every day, at least every week, why are we doing this the same way we did this last year? And we have new things that are disrupting surgery, like augmented reality, virtual reality, robotics. And I would argue that none of them are in their final form. I do not feel that they are the answer of to make perfect surgery, but they are going to keep evolving. And so it behooves all of us, even if you're a late adopter or a never adopter of some of these technologies, to keep asking questions and saying, what would I want if I could magically create something better for patients? And it's probably going to be based on some of these early prototypes. So again, the technologies that we're seeing play out are not final, just like the VCR wasn't final, and nor the DVD was final, and maybe streaming's not final. There's something probably else that's going to happen. And so the issue is we have to be critical in a positive way, critical of what we do today and say what would be better. And then we have to look at the current technology and go, I want to raise my hand and say, if you could change it this way. So I believe that people should be involved with technology, either regionally or with companies, because they don't know what we know, and they need our help in deciding what would be best. And therefore, it becomes a partnership between the two.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That was a very eloquent answer.
So my another question, coming back to your career, what is the achievement you are most proud of?
I thank you for that question. I think I'm most proud of being the best surgeon I can be. In other words, I feel like I've worked very, very hard for many years, and as we all do, nights and weekends, and almost maniacally so, almost at times saying, "Wow, you don't have a hobby. This is what you do. You just think about surgery all the time." And obviously, I have a family and friends, but I've really put a lot of work into it, and what that's led me to be proud of is I think I've learned anatomy quite well. I think I have become technically good. Um, and that's where I think I was even maybe the first 10 years out when I started really becoming good at things in my mind. I thought I had good anatomy, good technical abilities because I spent so much time in the operating room, in the cadaver lab, studying images, studying anatomy books. Now I think what I'm even more proud of to add on to that is I feel like I always try to do the right thing for the patient and their family. So in short, if you add the anatomy, the technical, and that I'm doing the right thing, I think I'm most proud of in my own mind is that I'm a trustworthy surgeon, someone who your family would feel comfortable, someone who if I referred, I'd say, I want someone who has those three things: technical skill, knowledge, and also a character and care, because then I feel like I can say to them, please take care of my family member, my child, my wife, myself, and I would trust you completely. And so I don't know if that's really what I've become, but that's what I hope to be. And I'll never get to what I hope to be, but that's probably what I'm most proud of, is that I've worked on those three things.
And so always working on improving oneself.
That's right.
And if you could turn back time, What advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, I think that what I've learned as an older surgeon is that some of my most valuable and most favorite experiences are when I did something with a partner or colleague. And I think surgeons are often taught when they come out, you know, how did your surgery go? How did you do this? And it's a very individual sport. And what we're realizing now is that when you win by yourself, it's fun. When you win by yourself, you win a tennis tournament, that's fun. I'm sure. I don't know, but I'm sure that's fun. When you win a team sport, it's fun. So when you win, it's fun. When you lose as a team sport, you have others who go through it. When you have challenges on a patient or an outcome, and you have other team members, they help you through that. They help you learn. They help you put a mirror in front of yourself. But when you lose by yourself, it's very lonely. When you lose by yourself, it's very lonely. So I feel like a lot of young surgeons, including myself, if I could go back, I'd say, do not feel like you need to do this completely by yourself in the first few years. I believe that that was what I had to do was I was going to learn, I was going to do things, I was going to prove myself. And then as I get older, more of my advances have been really asking colleagues in a humble way, I don't know what the right answer is. And then they teach me something, and I've learned faster than I would have learned if I spent the whole night studying in my study all by myself. So I think my advice to young people is use people around you, even ones that you think you have more experience than, even ones you think you're older than, because everyone has a different perspective. And that humility of saying, I don't know, and I would love your help, is something that I wish I did more of when I was younger.
Okay, thank you. So this is also the same advice I imagine you will give to any young surgeon who wants to pursue a career in spine oncology.
I think it even is more magnified in spinal oncology because I'm not a radiation oncologist. I'm not a medical oncologist. I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a palliative care doctor. I'm not a nurse. So, spinal oncology is really formed at the crossroads of all these different specialties. So as a surgeon, if you're the most knowledgeable surgeon in the world, you are still by definition not as knowledgeable as the most knowledgeable medical oncologist or radiation oncologist. So having someone being treated, you have to think about what type of tumor, what type of treatment for that patient versus a patient that you see next, very different. And you can even argue that the patient you're treating now, for example, me, I will be different than another person, but I'll even be different than myself in a year. So you have to actually treat me differently in a year with my cancer than you would today. And that flexibility comes not just from a surgeon's experience, that comes from all those others.
Thank you so
I
much
think
for your
in short,
answer.
Thank you very much. I want to add another question. You have another introduction that is you are completing MBA. You are also an entrepreneur. So for young spine surgeon, what is your advice regarding EMBA program and to be entrepreneur? What is your advice?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. A lot of people ask me that as a surgeon who spent forever doing surgery and medicine. And then I pivoted a little bit and then went and learned another tool. And for me, which might be different than younger people, is I felt like I was not learning at the same rate. I'm learning every day, but I started seeing I need to have a jump start to opening my eyes to a different area. And so that was for me. So if people feel that, they should always think about, do I need to start challenging myself more when I was in my 40s and decided to get an MBA versus someone who's younger? The second thing an MBA does is doctors, I'm so proud of my fellow doctors. I defend them to all means because I think I know what they go through in some ways, and I think we do great things for humanity. I think one of the negatives about doctors is in that excitement and in that desire to help people, we sometimes become too laser focused on an individual patient or an individual problem, and we don't look up around us at the rest of the world and see where the trends are coming from. So doing an MBA or thinking outside medicine at least allowed me to say, oh, taking care of a patient is not just me delivering care. It's their access to the system. It's their ability to forward things. It's what are our resources? How many people can we treat this way? Should we focus this care only in one area? Should we focus this care in multiple areas? How do we derive quality? And for me, that's become more important as a leader versus saying, see 5 patients, treat 5 patients. This apparently, in my mind, can impact thousands or millions of patients if we do it right. So I think medicine is focused and should be. I think the business world is more of a global view about how things are changing, and having a foot in each area allows us to probably not miss opportunity. So that's kind of my thought. In terms of people training to get an MBA, and when they should do it, if that's part of the question, is I still believe that people should focus hard on one thing and become good at it. And once they get that pretty good momentum going, they can shift. I do not like as much, at least at this point in my career, having someone learn a new language while they're learning a new sport, while they're moving, while they're a new parent. They end up spreading themselves too thin. So if people are in the depths of their training and really learning how to be good surgeons, maybe an MBA should be during their next phase or before that, because you want to become a really good surgeon and you want to become a really good business or entrepreneur. And sometimes doing them at the same time can be challenging, at least for me. There's other people who are probably more talented than me who can do 2 things at once. But for me, I always tell younger people, try not to do too much at once because you might not accomplish either that well. And most doctors and surgeons are they're perfectionists. So if they want to do something really well, maybe take them in tandem.
Great advice. I mean, to stay humble and to be a lifelong learner, that is what we can, emphasize from what you have told us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely right.
So coming to the flag end of this interview, let's engage in a quick game. We ask a question and you reply with a quick and a fast answer, right?
Okay.
So your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby is running while listening to music. Music and running.
Okay. Your favorite book?
Sorry? Oh, favorite book? Favorite book is Talent is Overrated. It's about how everybody can be great. They just have to work hard at it.
Talent is overrated.
Talent is overrated.
Okay, another book?
Another book would probably be Leaders Eat Last. Leaders Eat Last.
Leaders Eat Last. Okay, okay.
And that's
your
about
favorite sport.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Favorite sport? I think it used to be baseball in the New York Yankees. It still probably is, but I also went to Duke University, which is a big basketball team. So I do like college basketball, Duke basketball.
Nice.
I think this question you already answered, but still I want to ask you, favorite surgery?
Yeah, you were listening. So I think it's an en bloc spondylectomy, probably of the, I don't know, probably of the thoracic spine, maybe of the cervical, who knows, but I like the mobile spine.
I think you like that adrenaline rush.
Great. Another the warm question, that is, in this era, what is your liking most, navigation or freehand?
So I still do, I've always been a freehand person. I've done it for years and I'm faster with it. Navigation has allowed me to work on the fringes, planning en bloc cuts where I might not see everything because the tumor's inside the bone. So navigation, or revision operations where everything's been fused and I lose external landmarks. So navigation in those is essential. Now it's becoming very, very good. But if it's an open virgin spine, freehand is fastest and easiest and very reliable.
Okay.
So do you like open surgeries or minimally invasive? That's the trend right now.
Yeah, I think if I didn't say I like things less invasive, I would be a bad person. So we always want things less invasive. But obviously, given the types of surgeries I do, most of them are open. And that being said, we used to do them even more open. We used to make incisions even bigger and more destructive. So even in deformity operations or in tumor operations, we find ways to make them less invasive. I don't know if they're quite minimally invasive, but they're less invasive. So it's a combination. I didn't answer the question. I answered both, but you get the idea.
But you can get a margin here.
Finally, is a very short question, that is a word that defines spine surgery.
Rewarding. Rewarding.
A word defines in a word about spine surgery or the multiple word.
Yeah, multiple words would be, so one word would be rewarding. It rewards all the people who are involved, and the other one would be challenging. But I often think things that are challenging are often rewarding. So I would say rewarding.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
great.
pretty linked to one another. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today and for being a really great source of inspiration and motivation for young surgeons of our AO spine community. It has been a true privilege. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you. What you're doing is great because you're trying to connect people, and the connections is where the magic happens. No one is great by themselves, I alluded to. So thank you, and congratulations to you and your team for doing this. And thank you for having me.